everybody, it's me, Kenneth Bock, and welcome to A Course in Miracles Explained. Today I have the honor and privilege of speaking to Rosa Maria Wynn. She is the Spanish translation team leader for the Spanish edition of The Course in Miracles. Rosa Maria was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico in 1946. And from a very early age, Rosa Maria was interested in philosophy and the purpose of life. And by the age of 30, she'd been involved in many various enlightenment schools, including Sufism, Hinduism, Krishnamurti, Arika, and Est. After a sequence of events, Rosa Maria was shown the text of A Course in Miracles by a friend and was deeply touched by a sense of holiness and integrity, and she knew at last that she had found a way to God. After years of leading a study group, Rosa Maria was guided to start translating the course into Spanish, and decided to contact the Foundation for Inner Peace, and thus set forth a decade-long process of study, collaboration, and translation, which would finally culminate in the Spanish edition of A Course in Miracles, which was finally completed in December 1992. Today, Rosa Maria travels the world giving lectures and workshops teaching A Course in Miracles to Spanish-speaking audiences. So, Rosa Maria, welcome.
Thank you.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, yes.
Yeah, I got that right. So, Rosa Maria, let's we talked a little bit before we started the show, and let's talk about your brief history before A Course in Miracles, because I think that's very interesting. Because obviously you're someone who's very keen and was looking very intensely for truth. So do you want to just maybe give us a brief kind of history before you found the course?
Yes. What the things that you mentioned, those were just a little bit of the things that I did. But something very interesting is my grandmother, her name was Aurora, she was blind. She had been blind from diabetes. And I learned to read very, very young. So the first book that I read, because I would read it to her, was the Bible. Never imagining that all that combination of having read the Bible, how later on it will serve me, especially during the translation of the course. But like you said, I by the time I was 10, I was completely agnostic. I wanted to believe. I wanted to find something. I just couldn't find anything. And the idea of God that was presented to me, the God that punished, the God that although he was love, he would also send people to flames. I could not wrap my mind around that. This is being very, very young. So I became agnostic, became very interested in philosophy. I read Schopenhauer, Kant. By 16 years old, I was reading books that were being taught in graduate school in universities. But all of it in this search, then I got into things about ESP and yoga, anything that could give me an idea of what was this, what we were doing here. So besides the Sufism and things, there were many other things that I participated in and books that I read, and till in my 30s, when someone first spoke to me about the course, my initial reaction was total rejection. I did not like that title, A Course in Miracles. I thought that was probably for very simple-minded people, Christians, that needed miracles for their own salvation. Right. I, of course, was in things that were much more profound and deeper. So I had this rejection. Then I met these people that I had a lot of respect for, people who live with a tremendous amount of integrity. And when they told me that they got up early in the morning to do A Course in Miracles, I just could not believe it. Of course, I didn't mention my opinion, but it did, it put a little, if they were doing the course. Anyway, a few weeks later, that's when one of them gave me the text. At that time, the books were in 3 volumes.
Yeah.
I'm talking back in 1978. And I read a paragraph. And when I finished reading that paragraph, I knew without any doubt without any doubt that I at last have found my way back to God. My joy, I had to drive back to my house, and it was like I was outside of myself, the ecstasy, but I had to order the books, and I still didn't know how to do that. Finally, the next day I ordered them, and I had to wait like a month to receive them. And the person who had mentioned to me the course felt compassion and lent me the manual. So I read that manual like 8 times. I remember about 8 times. I would finish and I would start it again while I was waiting for my books. And I would tell all my friends, this is what we're going to be doing. This is it. We're going to all be doing the Course in Miracles. And they all would look at me like I was crazy. And though it took a few years, all my friends are doing the course. It's impossible to be around me practically and not get contagious with
Right.
passion for the course. And 3 years into it, someone suggested, why don't you start a Course in Miracles group study? And I just could not believe that someone could even think that you could study this in a group, because I was doing that by myself.
Yeah.
So, but I meditated and the Spirit told me yes to do it. I just didn't know how I was going to do that. So sure, things worked out that I started my first group in my house. And shortly after that, the voice started telling me that I had to call the foundation and tell them that I had to translate the course into Spanish. I resisted that a lot because I was uh, protecting my ego. What are they going to think? Now I'm hearing the voice, and, just protecting myself in that sense. And this has been, I was already a student close to 5. This was back in 83, I would think. So I have been a student of the course close to 5 years, 4 years or so when I called the foundation. And the first time I called, I spoke to Bob Scotch. This is after resisting. I would go to bed. The voice says, you have to call the foundation. I would sit to meditate. You have to call the foundation. This was like continuously telling me that. So finally, I had to do it. So I called, and Bob Scotch answered. And after I told him, what was happening, he said to me that they were not interested in translating the course into any language. But if I wanted to do it, to go ahead. But of course, they would not print it. They would not, that was up to me for me to do if I wanted to. I could not believe how flatly I was being refused after the voice had driven me crazy for months to make this call. So then he said, oh, and by the way, a lady from Texas called about a month ago telling me that she was going to translate the course. And when he said that to me, the voice asked me to ask him for this lady's phone number. So I go, do you have this lady's phone number? And he said, yes, just a second. And I'm there waiting, still cannot believe I was going like that, telling God, how did you put me into this? Like I thought it was all lost. Why was I getting all this information and this call to do this for nothing? So finally he comes back, he gives me the phone number, and I said goodbye, and I hang up. And when I hang up, I was totally like, how could I have been so wrong? You would think that if he asked me to call, that he would have it all handled.
Planned out, yeah.
And they were there waiting for me to call, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So anyway, now for about a month, the voice insisted that I call this lady. So finally, resisting, after having been blown anyway, I called the lady, and she said to me, oh yes, I did call, but when I reached the second page, I knew I could not do it. She was from Mexican parents, but her main language was English, and you have to translate into your language. And she did not have enough knowledge of the language at that level, of the level of the course, to be able to translate it. So that was it. She wasn't doing it. So now begins the second round of the voice insisting that I call the foundation again. And imagine that after I had been refused so flatly, if I had resistance the first time, this second time I I just could not do it. But it insisted even more. So with embarrassment, I was so embarrassed. And I called again. And this time a young woman answered. And I explained to her, I immediately apologized. I was told no, but this is driving me crazy, the insistence of the voice that I have to translate this. So she asked me who I had spoken to. I spoke to Bob Scott. She says, oh, no, you need to speak to Judith Scotch. Do you have pen and pencil? I could not believe she was about to give me her phone number. I had met Judy about 2 years earlier in a forum in San Francisco and immediately loved her. I just felt like she was the most beautiful thing in the world. Anyway, she comes, she gives me her phone number. I write it down. We hang up and I sat on my bed and I was in a state of, oh my God, like something was happening. The whole space changed. So I waited for a few minutes, collected myself, and I called. And this lady answered, and I go, may I speak to Judy Scotch? And she says, this is she. And I go, well, this is Rosa Maria Wynn. And I spoke to her, for a few minutes. And then she said to me, all right, well, would you like to meet tomorrow? I could not believe it. There, she's telling me, can we meet tomorrow? Well, I go, absolutely, absolutely. I will go and meet her tomorrow. So I went the next day and I met her. And she was very receptive. It was the difference between the first time and the second time was enormous. Then she asked me the next day, or she called me, she said if I had anyone, or maybe that very day, did I have anyone that I could do this with? Well, I had a partner. We used to teach Spanish to English-speaking people. So, but he had just recently, after years of resisting the course, the last 6 months, he finally got into the course and started coming to my group studies. And so I go, well, I'm going to ask a friend. So I called him. This is before I met her. I called him and I said, Fernando, I'm meeting with Judy Scotch tomorrow. Will you be willing to translate the course with me? It was a long silence. And I didn't say anything. I just let him go through the silence. Then he went, yes. Okay, great. So when I met with her, I go, yes, I have someone that I can do this. He was a professional translator. That was his job.
Wow.
And that began 9 months of meetings and discussion, and Ken wanted a sample. You see, they did not want to translate the course. That was really their position.
That's very interesting. This is pre the translation program. So you must have been one of the first, yeah?
I was the first.
You were the first translator.
We were the first translation. Nothing, that's what, they want to treat me like a translator, but this is much more. What happened is much more than just being the translator. We were the first ones. And like Judy said, that they made many mistakes with us because we were like the first child. And we, in fact, we used the first word, the program word, when it was done in Spanish. It wasn't finished. We were the first people who used the word program in Spanish. So we found all the glitches. I had to press about 4 keys to be able to print an accent. You won't believe, even to find the computer that we could do this, printer, in Spanish. I'm talking to you back in 1983.
Yeah, I was born in 1983.
You see, you were born in 1983. So that's when I began this whole process, and I cannot tell you, many times we lost whole chapters because you didn't have that thing. You would close the computer reminds you to save. We didn't have that. We lost work and we had to start all over again. I just cannot tell you. My husband had an office. I took that office, put it all in one room for him, and I took that as an office for me and Fernando to work, and this became my life. I'm telling you, my life. In Since I lost so many chapters, then we put a little thing in the computer that we will not turn the computer off without telling somebody, just so we couldn't lose any more work. And
Yeah.
it was not Spanish correctors, like to see if we were making a mistake. So in these first few chapters, I had to retranslate them so many times. But we had a draft that someone from Spain had done of the text, a translation. But it was a draft. So, but it was so useful, even as to what not to do. But what that man did really was a tremendous help. But towards mid translation, towards the end of the translation, I once counted all that I will stack every chapter that I had worked. I revised the translation over 80 times. I'm talking 80, that I read that in Spanish. And of course, I had to read it in English. So by the time I was done with the translation, I have read the course close to 160 times. I mean, you tell me this is in the course, that's not in the course. I mean, it's like I am a walking course because I read it, I polished it. We have 23 Spanish speaking countries, and there are certain words that cannot be used because are not proper in some language. How to get this that it would have the beauty of English,
Mm.
but to have the meaning. Also, Ken gave us particular guidelines.
Yeah.
But you speak two languages, and you know that languages are not logical, and they were telling us things that are not possible. Someone who doesn't speak, who only speak one language, cannot understand that there are certain things that cannot be done that way. You have to sometimes use another words, not the ones that are giving you, because what you want to preserve is the meaning.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Can you give us an example?
for example, like fingers, right? In Spanish, you call fingers your hands, fingers, and you have toes.
Yeah.
In Spanish, it's fingers for both.
Ah.
We don't have. We'll translate toes as you will translate fingers. That's just a simple
Okay.
example.
Yeah.
So then the word of atonement. That was the big how to translate atonement into Spanish. The person whose draft had arrived to my hands, he translated atonement with a capital A as redemption. I didn't like the actual proper word to translate it with. This is expiación, like expiation, because I had this idea of what expiation was, and obviously atonement with a capital A wasn't that. So then Ken told us that, of course, we could not use redemption because the word redemption also appears in the course, and we couldn't have the same word for two different. So so finally, many things happened. I even lost the translation after 7 years. They pay me for a few months, and after that, they couldn't pay me anymore. This is in the beginning. So I was willing to do it, for free. I want to clarify that my study groups have grown so much. I was doing interviews in TVs. I was going to universities to talk about the course. I had an editor after me to publish a book. All my talks and study groups were huge. We were recording everything. I was on my way to be like a big teacher of the course. All of that was put aside for me to commit myself to the translation, because that's what I was told to do, was to translate. The other stuff was what was happening. So after 7 years, we gave the foundation what we had done during those 7 years. They could not understand why it took so long, because when we first met and discussed this, Judy asked us, how long would it take us to translate this? And my partner, without checking with me, said, oh, about a year. I didn't say anything, but I thought he was insane. And when we went outside, I go, how did you say a year? It's going to take 2. Well, it took 10, 10 years. But I think we're the fastest translation. Of course, they didn't know how complicated translating. I mean, American people would tell me when they would find out that I was translating this in Spanish, that the course needed to be translated into English. Some people don't even into Spanish. How can you? So it was not like, and it's not an easy, and you need to understand what you're going, because otherwise, what you translate, it would not be meaningful to the reader. You need to really understand in order to put it into the target language. So a lot of these, sometimes I would go for walks trying to find a solution to something because it did not make sense. There were things that did not make sense. And I would tell Ken, there are errors in the English. And he would say, no, it's just that it's very deep, meaning that I did not understand it. And it was very deep. But when you're reading and you don't understand it, you read. But if you need to translate and there's something that it simply does not make sense, you will know it. Well, it wasn't until the French translators, years later, came into the picture that they insisted to go into the original text, the original, manuscript. Of course, there were plenty of errors. There were pages missing. There were paragraph missing. There were like a word ended in the word that, and the people who were transcribing the course in the very beginning, they would talk or eat something and they will come back. They will pick up the sentence after a that was 4 paragraphs below or 2 paragraphs. Of course, when you're trying to translate, it didn't make sense because it just didn't quite. So there's something called the errata, which is over 100 pages. There were 4 or 5 pages missing. So after we translated everything, we had to wait for the errata to translate that and then put it into the proper place where it went. But I would go out of my mind trying to translate something that made no sense because it just did not make any sense, except that as English speaking, you just would assume that spirit, this is so deep and profound that, but not when you need to translate it. You have to understand. So
why did the French translators change the picture?
I do not know. Maybe because they were French. I had more, were Spanish-speaking people. I do not know why, or maybe why they were able to convince Ken to go to the original manuscript.
Okay.
I don't know how they did it, but I'm very happy because when the Spanish version came out, it came out already with those corrections. The other thing, it was like you would read it and some parts were just made no sense because the English didn't make any sense. So but I had read the course 5 times, the text, before the translation. I have read the lessons two times because there's a lot of material in the lessons. And I thought that I really, had a pretty hold on this. And obviously, I did much more than Fernando. Fernando just was, he was just a translator. But I was the main person in this. Since it was something given to me by Spirit, I really owned it as my function. Yes, it is my baby. I do feel like I am the mother in the sense that, that was it. The translation became my life. There would be at times, Ken, that I would be sitting down in meditation and I would go into ecstasies just thinking when my people would get this in their hands, knowing that the Spanish-speaking world had no idea what was being done for them. And just to know that so many of them will will touch the highs and have these revelations, stuff that, be able to hear the spirit, to have this incredible change in their life, to make God the center of their life, to, all the teachings of the course, I would be in total ecstasy just thinking about it. And I mentioned this in seminars. I have been with thousands of people, thousands, in my seminars and in TV. I use my own money. The foundation never helped me with this. I brought 10 people with me the first time because I just didn't know how to go there alone. So I lost my house because I put everything on my credit cards to do this. I really thought that it was going to be like people would be so happy, but I had to count on people organizing for me. They would keep most of the money. I just could not believe how the spirit told me to do this, and here I lost everything. I lost my house. I had no money to pay for my kids' education, and he would tell me just to keep on trusting him. And I did lose everything in the physical world because, like I said, I had no help, financial help from anybody. I even had to buy the books for the first 6, 7 years, like a regular person. And I invested out of my own money hundreds of thousands in the translation because for a long time I didn't get paid, but then later on I did get paid. The foundation did buy the computer, the books, and they paid Fernando, my partner, because he had to work. But since my husband had a business and I worked on the business, I could forfeit payment. But we moved. We had a whole apartment that I could have rented at that time for $1,200 back then. This is years and years ago. But that became the place where I have people, because at that time we have two more people who had joined the translation. So I donated that to the project. I paid for the electricity. In other words, I invested a lot of money and time because this was my call. It was my, so they didn't tell me to go around the world. I did that following my own guidance, but I never suspected. If I would have known that I would lose everything, I might not have done it. Telling the truth, But now, even knowing what I lost at the physical, I would do it all over again because there have been thousands of people. I cannot tell you how much love, how much emails, how much the gratitude, the fact that I know the miracles that have taken place. And once the course came into the Spanish speaking world, it was like an explosion. Especially in Spain, when I went, and I would go 2 or 3 times to Spain. Sometimes I could not even get back my money from my ticket because I cannot tell you. It's a long story what it was to bring the course to the Spanish-speaking world, but that's what he told me to do. So, and he would tell me during the translation that the translation was just the preparation. He would say, you need to be seen and heard. And I go, oh my God, I was very much into Carlos Castañeda, and they were very into anonymity. So the idea of going public was totally against what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
But Spirit told me that I had to do it. So I cannot tell you how not only has this changed my life, and I live in a state of so much love and trust, and I have perfect eye, perfect health. I mean, I'm doing so good, and I know that financially, it's very hard to put all your money into something that you don't get in it, or royalties. I don't get anything. I made this book famous because I feel I have, in the sense, in the countries that I have gone to, and but I feel like it's even more, that gives more credit to the course, the fact that it was done for no financial interest. There was no financial, it was just the desire that more people would get into it, because we need a certain amount of people who would be willing to become miracle minded so we can achieve this dream. And that's all I care. That's my passion to want. So the more people get into it, so I have been compensated plenty, way more
Mm.
than money could have ever done. So that is in a nutshell. And like I told you, so this is it. So I don't feel only the translator. I was the main translator. We have people helping, but for 2 years I would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I will work till 6 o'clock in the morning. Then I would go back to be in bed to be with my daughter for 1 more hour. And then the group will come at 10 to 5. And then I will be working for those hours with the people in the course. Then from 8 to 9, I will be working. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will get up. My children, the people who are close to me, there were hours this was for years, the amount of hours,
Gosh.
just to make sure that the translation was the best, as beautiful, to give honor to the not only to its author, but to the teachings themselves, So,
Mm. Rosa
so
Maria, I wanna ask your connection with spirit, because clearly you have a very strong connection with spirit. And what was that already there before you started studying the course?
yes,
Could you
yes,
tell me a little bit about that connection?
yes. Well, the first time I heard the voice, that was during my agnostic years. I was 16 years old. And I lived in Puerto Rico, very strict family. Girls are not allowed to go outside, maybe similar to how it was in your country. But there was going to be this big Tito Puente salsa. I used to
Hey, I
love
love Tito Puente.
dance. Yeah, Tito Puente. And I used to be, whenever I dance, I would be the only one dancing at the end. It was my life. And I begged my family for 3 months to let me go to this big it wasn't a party, it was like a big concert. And finally I begged them so much that they said yes. So the day arrived, and I cannot tell you, the first time I'm going to a concert with Tito and other people and the dancing, and I'm taking a shower, and I heard a voice that told me, "You're not to go to this concert." You have to understand, I'm 16 years old, and all that it took for me to, and not only did I hear that, I immediately got that I wasn't going to go. This is, the course says that the voice is compelling. That's an exact quote from the course. The voice is compelling. It compels you to want to do it. So I got out of the shower, but I wasn't feeling any sense of sacrifice. And I put my regular clothing, and my mother said, "And you're going to get dressed?" I go, "No, I'm not going to go." Of course. She says, "Why?" I go, "No, I decided not to go." I wasn't going to tell my mother that I had a voice. Of course, they would think I was crazy. So that was the first time I actually heard the voice. I was 16 years
Wow.
old.
And you were so obedient.
I just don't know. I just could not go. And then the people who I was going to go with, they had a small traffic accident, but I mean, nothing happened. To this day, I have no idea why was I told not to go. I just didn't go. So then that was the first time I heard it, and clearly. And then another time, I was pregnant with my son, about 7 months pregnant, and the voice said to me, "You shall name him Gabriel." I was already in the spiritual path, but to hear the voice tell me something so clear, so then I knew it was a boy. I had not done that thing to find out sex, but I knew it was going to be a boy because this voice told me not only that, how I was going to name him. And so for few other things happened that I heard the voice. One time I was on a beach in Puerto Rico by myself. I was with my husband and a friend, and they just took off and left me alone with my boy. He was 4 months old, and I'm there when I looked and I see about 20 young men or 20 men coming towards me on the beach, and to put it mildly, that really frightened me, because I'm there alone with my son. And I had been with Baba Muktananda, which is one of the things that I did. And I immediately began doing Om Namah. I began doing the mantra. Then all of a sudden, the voice said to me, go inside and cover yourself. I put I had my bathing suit, but the voice told me to cover myself and then to go outside and to get in the water, just to put my feet in the water with my son. And these men are coming closer and closer. And I am on the beach by myself, and I felt like they all stood behind me. I was a young woman. I was pretty attractive back then. And all of a sudden, I just turned around and I looked at them, but very serious. I had my boy, I was holding him by the hands. His feet were in the water, and me too. And they looked at each other and they went on. So this was in obedience. Cover yourself, go in the water. Why did I hear this voice? But I did it, So, and one time I was about to eat this big dish of pork, all forms of how you prepare pork. And when the waiter come and puts the plate, I was salivating because I loved pork. The man puts the plate in front of me. I heard this voice from my right side that said to me, this is the last time you're eating that. I turned around because I was sure there was somebody there telling me that. So I was in total. So then I'm looking at the food, and my boyfriend at the time said to me, what happened? I go, I just heard a voice that told me that this is the last time I'm going to eat this. So I look at the food, and he looks at his food, the same plate. We push it aside. And to this day, I have never eaten pork ever again. Why was I told that?
Wow.
I had no issues about it. It was just a very clear, this is the last time. They told me the same thing with coffee when I was 9 months pregnant with my son. This is the last cup of coffee you're going to drink. This is way before the course. I never drank coffee again. And none of the stuff was any sacrifice. It was just. So when I'm reading the course and talks about this voice, I go, I know that voice. And a lot of the translation, a lot of difficult parts, I would go for walks. And he would tell me how to do it. I always want paper and paper. So I would write it down. I would come home, and either I would call Fernando, I got it. Spirit, tell me how to. And it was always perfect. So a lot of that is in the translation. A lot of So
it's beautiful.
It's and the course says, not everybody can hear it.
Yeah,
but
I have very few people actually. That's
very
what it
few
says.
people. But I'm telling you, I have supported many people, and sometimes in workshops, I have people to ask them to tell them that they're willing in meditation. Tell the spirit that you're willing to hear it. And many people now hear it, and because it is possible, but there are very few. I know that, but I guess I'm one of those few. I don't want to be any special, but that is the truth. That's the truth. So
has your understanding of the course changed since you started studying it?
Well, I started studying back in 1978, and it gets deeper and deeper. Like I told you, I have read this since I finished the translation. I probably have read it, 10 more times. So close to 200 times I have read the course. I'm talking the whole course, not just the text, the whole course, including, in fact, I'm working right now in the supplements, doing another revision. And every revision, I have revised this close to just this about 50 times. So what happens is, what the course takes you is to the fact that you can hear the spirit. Ultimately, people say, how can you how can I put the course into the most simple manner? The most important thing within the course is that you want to. You have to want to forgive. You have to want to give things to the Spirit. That's all we can do. People think that you can do more. We cannot do anything but to want. Everything is done by Spirit. He's the one that will do it, but He cannot do anything unless you say yes. I do retreats. I do 7-day retreats. I have 50, 60 people, and we do dynamics in which people at one point they say yes. You just surrender. I go, yes, Father, here I am. Here I am. So what I am more focused is in, there's so many times in the text that it tells you do this and do that, and most people just read through it. And I have taught people, I have trained, there's many, at least 40 people who are teachers today that I have trained to become teachers, because I knew that I had to have many people doing this. I could not be the only one, and I wanted the course to expand. So the important thing is the practice. The important thing is that when something is bothering you, how do you remember to call on the Spirit, so you can look at that with different eyes. The course is to be practiced in daily life. I mean, I can go with anybody to talk about the abstractions, but my focus has been more in the practice. That when something is bothering you, to tell the truth to Spirit. Where I am at right now, Father, I cannot forgive, I cannot get this. Just to tell the truth. So I do a lot of dynamics in my workshops with forgiveness. I mean, I cannot tell you what people has written. People have run out of my workshops to call a brother that they hadn't spoken for in 20 years. Forgiving people, really breakthroughs, couples make. So what matters to me is the actual practice, and I'm also very keen into the holy relationship, what that is, and those parts of the course I have read close to 200 times. Because they are so important, and I have been able to synthesize it and be able to put it to people in a more human form that they can, that the voice once told me that I have to humanize the course. I just wrote my first book. It just got published last April, and the book is really, it's called Impeccable Apprentice. And what I wanted was, if I were to die, I wanted to tell people, after having read this course so much, after having to know each word, what it meant, how the meaning grows, because the meaning grows, but really what grows is your willingness. Your willingness to, but also the meaning. It wasn't until maybe a few years ago that I got about being an apprentice of the atonement. And also, the course was, the foundation decided they were going to leave the word atonement like that in all the languages, talking about the Spirit. They called me to say that they had decided that in all languages, because by that time, after almost 10 years, other languages, the second translation was the Hebrew, then the French, the Portuguese, because once they said yes to me, that's what Judy's coach told me, that I'm it's all my fault for all this because they could not say no to anybody else, So I carried that very nice. So they were going to leave it in English. And since I totally respect them, because I know that they were entrusted with this material, but I went home, and the next morning I was meditating, and the voice told me, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This idea of leaving it told me that not. And then gave me the most thorough explanation. Listen, this was 10 years, no, by that time was 8 years into the translation. I have been a student for 5 years. That was 13 years of deep study of the course. And the voice explained to me exactly what it was, because I tell this to people in seminars. I could not understand what was the atonement. It says so many things. It's a chain of forgiveness. It's the correction. But I wanted to know what it was. So it explained to me, and it told me it had to be expiación, the very word that I did not want to use. But I understood why. I mean, there are many Spanish-speaking people that could not believe that I used that word because they had the same idea that I had. But I understand the difference between atonement with a capital A versus atonement with a lower A, which both appear in the course. So he told me that I had to go and meet the foundation,
Could you tell us a little bit about the detail about that? Because I'm interested now.
About the atonement?
Yeah.
The atonement is the most important concept of the course. It's the basics of the course. So let me tell you what the Spirit explained to me. You see, and this is all in the course, but you have to read it over and over and over. That's what I tell my friends. Just keep on reading the course because things get more clear to you. So the atonement was the plan, was what was thought in order to heal the mind of the Son of God. Once a concept enters the mind, it cannot leave the mind. Anything that we think will always, forever will be in the mind. It cannot be erased. So how could the idea of separation that had entered the mind of the Son of God be erased? How could that be worked out? So this is in the beginning of chapter. I think this is in chapter 6. A very splendid plan had to be thought out, that once you allow that plan, that concept to enter in your mind, you could not sustain the thought of separation and the thought of atonement at the same time. I mean, it is the most brilliant, but no one understands it. I've gone deeply in my book. I really go, because I've done it in my workshops. So the people who have been with me for years finally have gotten what the atonement is, but this is out of repetition and repetition. So what happens with the atonement? The atonement is literally something. The Course calls it a defense, but it's really a concept. And I knew that it was so important because why would the Course insist that you have to accept it for yourself? You have to accept the atonement for yourself. A teacher of God has to accept the atonement. But how do you accept something that you don't even know what it is? You could say, well, accept the atonement, but those are just words. So after those 13 years and me, I had translated it as redemption. So for many years, I was calling it in Spanish redemption. And that gave it it softened the idea of what I thought atonement, the regular atonement with a lowercase, is the ego's plan. The ego, in any form of suffering, you are atoning with lower a. You are suffering. The ego is the one that tempts you. You fall for the temptation. You think, say, or do something that God would not have thought, said, or done. And then you atone in suffering. That's the lowercase atonement. Yeah. So those are the two plans. This is the Course in a nutshell. This is it. And this is what I go to explain in my book. I'm translating the book. Hopefully you will get to read it when I translate it, because it's much more, it's explained with more detail. Right. But either you atone with ego or you atone with spirit. That's it.
So why expiación?
Expiación is the Spanish translation for atonement.
But why specifically that word? You were mentioning that Spirit wanted expiación.
Yeah, because you see, because that is because expiar, if you look in the dictionary, expiar, which is the infinitive to atone, means to pay for. You pay for your sins. That's how normally is understood, which is correct, because that's the ego's form of atonement. Yeah. You see, so to atone, there's a section in the Course that says, atone you must. We cannot not atone. The ego, how we are set up, how this whole illusion is set up, is that every time I say something, think, or do something that is not of God, which not only was I deceived by the ego, I wanted to be deceived by the ego because we still have the power.
Mm-hmm.
Once I fall, then how the ego, the setup in the mind is that you pay in suffering. That's atoning in the ego's plan. So here comes the Holy Spirit, comes Christ. Jesus says in the Course that He is the atonement.
Mm.
This is an exact quote of the Course. I know the Course. Having read this close to 200 times, believe me, I have. I can tell you this is here, this is there, this is. He is the atonement, and He came to earth to put the plan of atonement to get it going. So His birth here was to bring us the atonement, but the atonement is something that you have to accept because it was not in your mind when you were created. When the Son was created, He didn't need atonement. So we need to accept it. It's like our mind has a virus. Our hardware has a virus, and we need this chip to correct the virus. But you have to give permission for that chip to be installed in your mind. We need to give the consent. We need to say yes to Jesus, to Christ, to the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. We need to say yes. Without your consent, there's nothing the Spirit can do. But the acceptance of the atonement, I have been in the Course since 1978, many, many years. This has been close to 34 years or 33 years, something like that. And it has took me many years, especially after He explained to me that if they would put the word atonement with a capital A in English, but then I would use expiación for the lowercase, the voice said to me, the Spirit, my people will never understand the Course. They will be cheated from understanding the Course. And He told me that I had to go to the foundation and repeat this twice to them, that my people will be cheated if we use atonement in capital A and then expiación in lower a, because these are the two plans. This is all we need to do as students of the Course. This is the main. It's very simple, but it takes years. For most people, it takes years to get that. That's all we're doing. Either you atone. That's why the Course says, give to the Spirit everything that shames you, that hurts you. You need to tell the truth when you have done something that God would not have done. All it is how the Spirit and the ego deal with guilt. That's it. The ego tempts you, you fall for it, then He punishes you and makes you atone. The Spirit, you need to tell the truth. I did do that, Father. I spoke badly about somebody. Telling the truth is the hard, and this is what I do in my seminars. My seminars are very, I don't want to fool around. After I have read this so many times, I go to the act. Let's deal with the guilt. This is what's killing us. And telling the truth. I have people write down. Of course, we deal with forgiveness, what we did, what other people did to us, but that's entertainment. The bottom line is what you have done to others. That's it. That's really the crux of the matter. Is what we have done to others what really is the source of all our pain, of all our suffering. So, but you need to tell the truth. So for when Spirit told me that this is what I had to do in my seminars, I was furious with Him. I go, why do you give me that? That I have to tell people you need to write down what you have done to others. I wanted to talk about all the abstractions of the Course, and here I have to bring out all the dirty laundry, not to me, but people writing it down. Yeah. And then do as the Course says, to tell the truth, to tell the Spirit that you made the wrong choice, that by that wrong choice you have lost your peace. This is in the Course. All of these words are in the Course. But of course, you need to read it over and over because we read the Course and not necessarily are going to remember. In fact, the second time I read the Course, I could not believe I read it once. Did I read this? So all it matters here is the acceptance of the atonement. And you need to offer whatever is it that you did that God would not have done. You tell the truth and you give it to the atonement. You give it to the Holy Spirit. And I have shared things, very profound things that I have done. I share a lot of my mistakes and how by giving it to the atonement, how I feel it. I just feel it like that. and you go back to your innocence. You see, only the guilty condemn. This is an exact quote. This is a direct course from the course, a direct quote. So we need to heal our guilt. That's all we need to do. And the only way that can be healed is through the atonement. So
Did the foundation make the change that you suggested?
Oh, this was before, of course. No, then when I explained all this to Judy and Wheat, they were, oh my God, they got it. So they had to call Ken. So Ken was living in Roscoe, in New York. So he came because we had to have a meeting, because this was very important, because this was going to determine all of it for all the translations. So Ken came, and so we met at Judy's house, and Hewitt said, explain to him, because neither him or Judy could explain to Ken what I got. I mean, people really do not understand what the atonement is. I'm telling you, I have been with thousands of people, both in English and Spanish, but I understand because I went through the same thing. And if the voice had not helped me with this, I don't know that I would have still to this point have gotten it. So after a while, I explained to Ken everything, what it was, the two plans like that, and Ken did. Expiación it is. That was it. Not only for the Spanish, but for all the languages. So now they're translated in language, in whatever language, but they're both the capital and the lower are the same, because otherwise people would not know the difference, that these two plans. So all our suffering is you're following the course says the ego's plan is the most popular, obviously, all the suffering, all sickness, all of it is the form of atonement. This is an exact quote from the course. So I bypass, I not long ago, I got into internet and I found all these people and these arguments about the course and what it means. I didn't know any of that was going on. I completely stayed myself out of that. All I want to do is for people to understand that there are two plans in here, and either you go and whatever you choose. I mean, those of us who want to bring the happy dream as soon as possible will go for it. But those that choose not, they will also come. The salvation is going to be for all of us. I really would look forward for you to read the book, The Apprentice, Impeccable Apprentice, because I wrote it really for students of the course. I cannot tell you. I mean, the book has been a few months and people are telling me, oh my God, I finally am getting it. It's been like a revolution, but it's very simple. But all it is, we have to understand, is the atonement, is the plan. It is our salvation. It is what's going to heal our mind, is the atonement. That was its purpose. And it is not forgiveness. The way to atonement is through forgiveness, obviously. But we cannot forgive. That's in the course. But you could be inspired, made to want to. Remember I told you about wanting? You would want to forgive, and once you want to forgive, that's it. That's it. And it's not. And what happens is, and I explain this in my book, forgiveness in the big context is a reinterpretation of what happened. So the way that you interpreted something gets reinterpreted, because it cannot be taken from your mind, but the interpretation that you made can be changed. To one that it is in alignment with truth. It's not the ultimate truth, because it still is illusion, but it stops being a source of pain. So the whole, if you want to work the course, besides maintaining vigilance of your thoughts, is to tell the truth when you're not happy. Tell the truth to Spirit, where I am at right now, Father. And we are terrified to look at guilt. None of us want to look at what is it that we have done that God will not have done. I had a lady who had been in 8 seminars of mine, 8. And that 8th seminar, when I was doing this dynamic, it's called the forgiveness dynamics. Finally, all of a sudden, she breaks into tears and crying. And someone approached her and said, "What's the matter?" She says, "Oh my God." She was experiencing the guilt that she was feeling for having hit her child when the child was young. She used to beat him, physically. And all of that was pushed back. So during this, she had been in seven seminars. This was the eighth, more or less the same dynamic. Finally, because the course says those things are very deep down, but they are there, part of the decision making. We make decisions based upon the guilt that you have not processed. So this lady came and asked her what's the matter. She said, "Oh, I just have this guilt about what I did to my son." And this woman, also another student of the course, says, "Oh, but don't feel guilty. Guilt is not real." And guess what? That doesn't work. It is not real, but you need to process it. You need to use the fact that it is not real, but you cannot stop there. And the course says the same thing. You need to tell the truth. So I had her take a look at, go back to the moments when she would make that decision to hit her child, and let that pain out. Don't worry, don't. But till she was finally in a state that she could give it to the spirit in peace. And when she did, it was like that again. She went back to her peace. You see, all the pain, all the lack of love, all that you see, all the madness in the world is how the ego deals with guilt. We project it. We have to see someone else as bad. So all it is in here is these two plans, and they both have to do how the spirit deals with your guilt, how ego deals with your guilt. With spirit, he will release you of it, but you need to tell the truth. Simple as that. So this is and since when he told me that to tell the foundation the 2 times, and Ken got it, and he said, okay, so it is expiación in capital and expiación in lowercase in all the languages. He told me, spirit, I cannot tell you how much I hear. He told me that I have always, in every seminar I give, I have to talk about the atonement. And I have given over 200 seminars. I've been doing this for 19 years. And sometimes I gone into these tours, spend thousands of dollars in my airline ticket, and have gone wrong, and did not even get not even my expenses, But I have always obeyed. I have always talked about the atonement. And right now I call myself an apprentice of the atonement. And that's only mentioned in the course once. The apprentices of the atonement become the teachers of innocence. And why we can atone with spirits? Because ultimately, it all has happened in a dream. We still are innocent. But as long as you don't process your guilt, you won't believe you're innocent.
Yes.
You believe your guilt. And then only the guilty condemn, only the guilty attack, because the ego deals with the guilt, projecting it. You have to see it outside. So when you said, have I changed, have the course, the more I read it, what it has done, it has made me more aware. That is the practice. That I don't want to start, talking. I can talk about abstractions of the course. And many people might think that I don't know the course because I'm so adamant about it. Let's talk about let's do this dynamic about what you feel guilty about. I don't want to fool around with anything else, because I know that is the crux of the matter. That as long as you feel guilty about anything, you will atone with the ego. You will pay in suffering. We cannot escape that. But once you tell the truth to spirit, he will erase that. That would be healed. That would be healed. And what happens is that then you have more compassion, towards another, just because you have been there, and you will stand for the innocence of everybody. So
how would you recommend someone doing this on their own? Would they just write it down, like, to tell the truth, as you say, all guilty feelings that they feel, present, past, present?
Now, what I do in the seminars, and this is what he told me to do, the dynamic, you have to write down everything that you have. If you're feeling guilty about something, some people, have buried the guilt so much that if you tell me what have you done that God would not have done, they could be there for 10 minutes trying to remember because it's so buried. It's completely buried. So, but anything that have violated the golden rule, if you have done something to someone that you would not like to be done to you, I assure you there's guilt there. If we have spoken bad about somebody, there's guilt there. The Course says the smallest antagonistic thought about somebody causes guilt. So you can imagine we are swimming in guilt like a fish in water. So if anybody's really a student of the Course, and this is what my book is addressed to, directed to, is that you sit down, you take a piece of paper, and you say, what you have to ask the question, what do I feel guilty about? What do I feel guilty about? And if you ask sincerely, the mind would tell you. It would tell you. And then in chapter 5, at the end of chapter 5, the decision in favor of God, it gives you exactly that you need to bring the mind to the moment that you made the decision that makes you then do what you did or did not do that now brings you guilt. Now, of course, I have read the Course so many times that I know that in other parts it tells you, this is what I tell people, I do this dynamic. I have CDs in exercises. Those are the CDs that sell the most, in which there are people who listen to them all the time and things come back that they have forgotten, something that they did to somebody, but that was there killing them, but they were not even aware of. You understand, Ken, what I'm telling you? So you would need to tell the truth. What is it that I have done? And once it comes back, you need to bring your mind to the moment that you made the decision and offer that decision to the Spirit, saying this, I made the wrong choice. I let myself be deceived, but you did it purposefully. The ego doesn't deceive you. You want to be deceived. I insist on that in my book because we still always have the power. We still do because we are the Son of God. So I wanted to be deceived, Father, and I did, you put the blank, I did whatever it is that I did. I give it to you, Holy Spirit. I give it to you. Please heal my mind. I give you that decision, and you just give it. The Course says in that section to give it to the atonement. But you can also give it to the Holy Spirit. It doesn't matter. You give it to the atonement. I made it wrong. You're not defending. You're not justifying what you did. You just tell the truth. And you just wait. And it's like that. It just comes. And you go back to your peace. I tell people in the work, all of you will love the atonement. When you really get what the atonement is, you will love it. I love the atonement. It's my passion. So now there are many people, this has been now for a few years, many people know this passion that I have with the atonement. And I just cannot tell you, when people said for the first time I experienced my innocence, it's just so beautiful. And the more of us who accept the atonement and heal the guilt, then we're going to be seeing a different world. We're going to see the happy world that is right here, because the happy dream, because Christ already dreamed the happy dream for us. And this is a dream. And I know that this is a dream because I've been lucid here. You see, with Don Juan, I don't know if you know Carlos Castañeda, I became an expert in lucid dreaming at night. In which I would carry out tasks that I gave myself here. I'm going to have a lucid dream and I'm going to do such and such. And then sometimes it would take me a few weeks. But when I became lucid, I would do exactly, and the me in the dream that was lucid was aware of me in the bed, that was aware of me being lucid, this incredible connection. And I did that for about 12 years, a lot of lucid dreaming, a lot of things. And once I was about 6 years into the course, when I realized that I had never been lucid in this dream. This was a dream. I wanted to be lucid here. 3 years. Ken, it took me 3 years asking for it. I want to be lucid here.
Wow.
But you know, time you ask for something and you don't know what you're asking? The first time I became lucid here, I almost died of terror. It was terrifying. Because when I was, you see, once you're lucid in a dream, it's an experience that is very unique. So once I had it here, you see, right now I'm talking to you that I know that this is a dream, but I'm not lucid right now. I'm just in the experience, in the knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are in the experience, there's no words to describe it. So I didn't know who was dreaming me. Who's dreaming me? Now I know.
That is freaky.
It is freaky. It was, listen, my body will go into convulsions of terror because I would have these episodes in which I would become totally lucid here. It was terrifying because I thought if whoever was driving me would become aware of me, maybe I could disappear, because anything that you think you know collapses when you become lucid.
Right.
So this is a dream. I know that.
It's the terror of disappearing, right?
Exactly. And what is this? So this is a dream till finally I had one experience of lucidity, and I felt it coming, and I made the choice that I wasn't going to be in fear. So now I have it. And sometimes out of the blue, I become lucid. So when I'm lucid here, I start blessing. I start blessing the world. Because every time I bless the world, I'm banking in the happy dream, every loving thought, because the Holy Spirit saves. And the happy dream, the real world, is made of all the happy thoughts, all the loving thoughts that any part of the sonship has ever had. So every time I'm conscious, I bank into that happy dream, because that is the goal. We cannot go to God till we attain the happy dream. So I've gone, we talked about this. I could go.
Yeah.
Rosa
Maria, do you need a break?
No.
Let's talk a little bit. Let's give our audiences a little, we were talking a bit about the Spanish speaking ACIM community. And the Spanish ACIM speaking community is the biggest language speaking community beyond the English speaking ACIM world. So I'd just like to give people a sense of what it's like. And of course, since you're at the center of it, tell us a little bit about how ACIM is developing or being received in the Spanish speaking world.
It has developed beyond my wildest imagination. I mean, it is online. There are teachers all over. There are things happening that I find out, after months or years after it's happening. It has expanded. The course is growing more and more all the time in the Spanish speaking world. And there are many countries that I didn't get to go, and I don't know how much more I'm going to be able to travel, because I've been traveling for 19 years. And it takes a toll. I just finished a tour in Spain, went to 4 different cities, but it's physically, it takes a toll on me, and I just got that I no longer can do that. I do my workshop standing, and I'm very passionate. So physically, I get exhausted. During the seminar, I'm doing fine, but the next day is like, so, but there are hundreds of groups. There's so many things on internet in Spanish. It's beyond what I know. And I told Judy one time they were going to sell, like they sold the copyright to other. And I begged her not to do it with Spanish, because Spanish was going to be the biggest. And she's so glad that she did that, and they still have it, because all that they get is supporting other translations, because we want to expand this. And she tells me that she would have never thought that her last 15 years of what she's working is with translations. She never expected that would be what she's doing. But I also travel with people. I developed these trips, and we have gone to many countries. We went to Greece, and we contacted teachers there, and we had over 100 people from Greece in this mansion that was offered to meet our group. We were about 40 people who came from all over Spanish speaking countries, and to have this meeting with Greek students of the course. Then we went to Israel, we met with students of the course, to Rome. It's just, and these are becoming, like we are becoming, you know, I do this on my own. I really do not know much what other people are doing. I just get these ideas, and the boys told me you have to go to Greece. So here I go, and these 40 people come with me, and it is beautiful. But all I know is that in the Spanish speaking world, it has not even come close to the peak.
Mm.
And not only that, once the course, like I've been going to Spanish speaking countries for 19 years now, it has opened the space for Ken's books, for Gary. I mean, what that community has formed out of so many, especially in Spain, in Venezuela, in Mexico, Argentina, where I have gone a lot of times.
Mm.
In other Spanish speaking countries, there might be, maybe 100, 200 people reading the course, but not like in Spain. In Spain, I'm sure it's close to 1 million people now, or at least 500,000. In Venezuela, I've been in Venezuela close to 25 times, in Spain about 30 times. So this is going and putting advertisements, sending brochures by mail. One section of my brochure always dedicated to the course, and I don't make any money of the course. I make no. I just want the book to sell, because I want as many people as I can reach, to see how many of those would be willing to become miracle minded, accept the atonement, so we can achieve this dream. All I care is about. But in the Spanish speaking world, it has barely peaked. It's I know the course is going to change the planet. I know it's going to change it. And there's 23 Spanish speaking countries. I've gone to mostly to about 5 or 6 of them. And if God wants me and people want to support me, help me to do it, I'll be willing to visit more, to open the course, and then we leave it in Spirit's hands. And the Ken's books have arrived, and there's so many teachers, and people ask me, well, Ken was my when I first started the course, he had these pamphlets that in my experience set me in the right direction.
Mm.
Through Ken. But I have not read none of his books the last 15 years. Nobody's book, not even Gary. I met Gary, we did a workshop. He did it on Saturday, I did it on Sunday. I just don't have time. All I read is the course. And I finally, after 19 years, I was able to publish my book, because I don't make enough money to I have to do this to keep myself above, because
Water, yeah.
of water. And but people ask me, what about this? I go, well, you read it, and it helps you to forgive, helps you to see the innocence in your brother. It's good. If not, then you can find out that it wasn't good. That's it. You at least learn that, So
I like that.
yeah,
Very
so
simple.
I don't have any issues. The course says, like you who are doing this, the course says, Ken, there is someone who's waiting for you to say something, because they cannot hear from anybody but from your mouth. This is just how it is. So there are people who are waiting for Kenneth Buck at some point for you to say something that they have been waiting, that will totally change their mind, that will put them in the right direction.
Don't hold your breath, guys.
That's how it is. That's just how it is. This is exactly, and I know that. So, and there's no seniority in the course. I mean, in the sense that whatever we're at, we all are teachers, and I want to fill the world with teachers, but we have to be first students. I tell people I'm a student of the course, and I want to be the best student. I'm also a teacher because I am at the world. But the bottom line, what I care is to be the best student, but I do know that there's someone waiting for you to say something. And I tell this to people in seminars, and I don't do it to be cute. It's just that this is in the course. And I understand why it's so. So there are people who I even ask people here, who's thinking becoming a teacher? And you see some people, I have people stand up who are teachers in my seminar, who are teachers of the course. They stand up. And who's thinking about it? And some people have stood up, and some of those who stood up finally said, yes, Father, I am, and have begun a study group. So that's what I want, is I want to expand this, and for people to know that we're innocent, that the error that was committed, the attack, all of that happened within the dream, in the dream that Adam fell upon, that the son could have never, ever, ever have done something against the father. And that error, the original error, was an innocent error. It was innocent. And this is the basis of my book, that and the atonement.
Mm.
And
is it available in both English and Spanish?
This is one of my projects. As soon as I finish this that I'm doing now with the supplements, because I need to publish them again, because I sold all the ones I did, but I'm always correcting, making it better. My book has been translated by friends, but I'm revising the translation to make sure that nothing meaning. So I would think hopefully I'm going to put it online, and it would be called The Impeccable Apprentice. Impeccable both ways, meaning impeccable when your actions are congruent with your goal. Impeccability in that sense, and also impeccable in the fact of sinlessness. Because in Spanish, sinlessness is translated as impeccable.
That's beautiful.
Without sin. So that would be the title, and although it's really for students of the course, is based upon that, and the total about the atonement, all of these that I put in few words really explained, and for us to want to really to give everything to the atonement, to anything that hurts you, anything that you have done that God would not have done. Remember that if we don't process it with spirit, the ego will make sure that you pay for it, that you atone with the lower A. We cannot escape atoning. It's who do you choose to atone with, and we need to choose to atone with the Holy Spirit. He is what was given to us, and so I want to speed up the awakening, and it is tied up to the atonement.
It's speeding up. I'm very sure of that. I can feel it. So, Rosa Maria, it's been such a great conversation. We're just going to start winding this up. Any last words for our viewers out there?
For the viewers out there is that the bottom line is that we are all innocent. That whatever we have done that is not of God was just a simple mistake. But we allowed it. We wanted to be deceived, and just to tell the truth, not to ever fear, to tell the truth to Spirit, so He can heal our minds, so we can truly be servants of the plan. Because behind all of this madness, we still are as God created us, and the error that took place was already healed. We're just here like reliving something that so long ago was healed, and to go for it, to love, to bless each other. I have people blessing, go outside and start blessing people. Anyone who goes by, you just in your mind just bless them, wish them well, and that does wonders for our joy and our happiness. So that's it.
Rosa Maria, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a total pleasure. And I see you again at some point. Many, many blessings to you, dear brother.
Many blessings to you too.
Amen.
Sister.
Bye-bye.
Say bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.